Mr. Scott Bascom.
What I'm going to share is really just my story. I'm just going to share my story. Like Tom said, very busy, like most of you. But first off, I want you guys to just, kind of give yourselves a pat on the back because you've already invested in yourself, right? So a lot of people don't take the time out to invest in themselves, and you guys have already done that. I mean, it's 4 o'clock, and so you've been here for quite some time. So congratulations, right? I always tell my team, invest in yourself. So great job there. So I'll start with who I am, right? So my story is really just going to be a testimonial to who I am, what I do, what I've been able to achieve in short time. And the reason I share it is not to brag. Christine gave a great segue when a lot of agents raise their hand and they're rookie agents, right? So I was a rookie agent. I started in 2019, so I was a rookie agent there, right? So who I am right now, I have my own team that I started last year of 10 agents, Dreams to Reality team. I am also licensed in Mass and Rhode Island. And I'm a vice president for Citizens Bank, branch manager, so I run 2 branches as well. And I have 2 kids, and I'm a husband, right? So I'm very busy. So like Tom said, if you think it's impossible, it's not. You can do it, because if I can, anyone can. So I'm just gonna kind of tell you about where I came from. I also do own a 5-family commercial residential property, right? So, feel free to ask questions about that. I acquired that property a year ago, so I've had it for a little over a year now, right? So let me tell you about my story. So why did I get into it? It's quite funny. I'm a very competitive guy. I'm an athlete. So when I started, I purchased my first house, and then I sold that house, made a profit, purchased my second house. And what made me get into real estate is my wife said, just because he can do it doesn't mean you can do it. She was talking about our realtor, right? So, and I'm like, this guy made a lot of money, right? And she's like, just because he can't do it doesn't mean you can do it. That was like my first motivation. My second motivation was wanting to really provide a life for my kids that I didn't have, right? So being able to give them opportunities that I see a lot of others have, and I said I want to be able to create that for them, right? So I'll start a little bit about where I grew up. And so I grew up the oldest of 3 sisters, 1 brother. When I was about 2 years old, my mother and father got a divorce. I spent my childhood kind of going back and forth between both families, my mother's house and my father's house. Right? Most days I was a designated babysitter, so when we got home from school, I was watching the kids, right? There was no time for extracurricular activities, no family vacations, and we lived in the projects, Franklin Field, right in Boston, right? So, I bring that up because, like I said, I thought about that every time where I say, you know what, I want to do things slightly different, right? Provide a different type of life. I told myself every night that I was going to do everything I can to provide opportunities for my children, while understanding that my parents did what they had to do to help us get by, right? So there was no hard feelings there. So right after high school, I graduated in 2003. I made a decision, I had to make a decision on whether I was going to go to college or not. All right, so I had just moved out of my father's house into a studio apartment at the age of 18, and so I decided I needed to work instead of go to college. And 6 months later, I decided no, I was going to change that trajectory. Right, I decided to go to college. So I went to graduate college. I was first-year college student. No one in my family had gone to college. Right, so I went to graduate college. I majored in criminal justice, minored in sociology. I passed the civil service exam and got 3 opportunities to work for police departments. But after 4 years of college and aspired to work in law enforcement, I decided to stick with my retail management job. So I had worked in retail management prior to joining the bank, and I did that for about 10 years. Right? So I was working about 70 hours a week. Anyone that is familiar with retail, I worked at an athletic retail sneaker store, so holidays, no time for families. You were doing what you needed to do to kind of get by. So it was about 70 hours a week. I was making about $48,000 a year. And I'm like, oh, this is $48,000. This is good money, right? So then I did the math, and I was like, this is about $13 an hour, right? So it wasn't good money now that I think about it, right? I stuck with that company for 10 years. I wasn't the guy that was just next opportunity. Stuck with that company for 10 years. I picked up and moved my family At this point, I didn't have kids yet, so it was just my wife and I. The company said, we want you to move to Poughkeepsie, New York, right, and run a store for us, right? So not only was I going to be doing it at $13 an hour, I now was going to have to be away from my family here, right? So I said, sure, why not? Let's do it, right? So I moved to Poughkeepsie. That's when my son was born in Poughkeepsie, and so at that point, I decided to move back home, and I had my daughter in 2015. So we moved back to Mass. We purchased our first home in 2015 for $225,000. It was like a split level. Everyone knows, if you're a realtor, you know a split level now. It was in Brockton. It's going for $450, right? So we purchased it in 2015 for $225,000. I sold it in 2018 and made a $75,000 profit on that property. So I took that $75,000, used that capital to purchase my new home, which is my primary home now, right? 2016, I decided to change in order to make a change, a professional change, in order to have more time with my family, right, and a better income. This is when I made the transition to Citizens Bank. As I told you, multi-site branch manager. So I run a couple branches, and recently promoted to vice president, right? But still something was missing. I didn't have the financial freedom that I wanted, right? I was making much more than my previous employer, but still not enough to fulfill my dreams and aspirations, or my wife's dreams and aspirations. Right? So then in 2019, I decided to get my real estate license after she said what she said, right? I convinced myself, and other people told me, you know, you're gonna have to take that test 4, 5, 6 times. I said, no, I'm gonna take that test 1 time, right? So I said to myself, I said, this is gonna be the perfect side job for me. It'll give me the supplementary income to kind of go on vacations, do the things I wanted to do, right? Then I met Dick and Tom, and they steered me in the right direction with EXP, right? So the side job changed my life and started to make the unthinkable possible. I called the title of my speech, even the unthinkable is possible, just because of, you know, where I came from and kind of where I'm at today and where I still aspire to be, right? So my first year in real estate, it started off as a challenge, but I had to be resilient. This is really, for all you new realtors in the building, this will kind of resonate, right? So I had not sold a property from January to August. Right? So what's that, 8, 9 months? I had not sold one property. So I tell you now, if that's you, do not get discouraged, right? I tell my people on my team that all the time, don't get discouraged, right? I took this as an opportunity to use all EXP's tools and training to kind of educate myself, and I said, well, when it comes, it's gonna come, right? So I would go on that same year to make $35,000 in commission from September to January from this side job, right? At that moment, a light bulb went off. This is when I said, you know what? This is no part-time gig, right? So I said, this is almost, that's, you know, almost a third of what I'm making at my full-time job in a few months, right? So fast forward to today. I made $1.2 million since 2019, right? And I bring that up because it's possible for really anybody in this room, right? Which is a third of that is just from my full-time job. The rest of that was from real estate, right? This was a game changer. So in January of 2022, I decided to purchase my first 5-family commercial property. I know there were questions earlier about business structure, so I did purchase this property under an LLC, right? When it came to me thinking about this property, I had to get a commercial loan. I went to a bank, and so I didn't know about running the numbers to know if it was the right property or not, but the lender took care of that. The lender went out, took a look at the property, and they said, Scott, this property is the best cash flow property that I've seen in a long time, right? So to me, it was a good one. The property has a mortgage of $2,300 a month, and my rents are $5,900 a month right now, right? So that's $3,600 increase. So I said, to me, this is a good property. I did put 25% down, right? So that was roughly around $135,000. A lot of it came from just my work and commitment, the first property, and my time in real estate, right? When purchasing the property, I made sure that collect those estoppel agreements they spoke about earlier. It's huge, right? This was extremely important because I wanted to make sure that I was taking over the property and knew exactly what I was taking over. So in that closing disclosure, you want to make sure, well, I had to make sure that if there were securities held, it was first month, last month, that closing disclosure is going to disclose that to you. And the estoppel agreements are going to make sure that they're signed by the tenants. That is actually what happened, right? So the seller can give me anything he wants, or the listing agent in reference to estoppel agreements, but these are signed by the tenants, so you know that they're true, right? There are a bunch of, so I won't tell you that it's been all peachy, right? I love the income, but it does require work. Right now, so there's fire safety codes in which you have to get inspected every 2 years, right? So what's going on in that property right now is I've got a company there. The fire safety chief came in, said the property is in great shape, but it's an older property. It's in New Bedford, by the way. I didn't mention where it was, but that's in New Bedford. So when I thought about where I wanted to purchase, I was obviously just like everybody else, looking at which market made the most sense for me. I did some research, and there's a big T project about to go on in the New Bedford area, right? So I thought that the values would increase quite a bit, right? So I purchased New Bedford. So when it comes to the maintenance, there are going to be maintenances. I personally don't use a property manager just because I don't want to give out 10% of my rents. But time is money, so it might make sense for you. And at some point, if I pick up a second, a third, holes in the walls, the fire chief came in and said, property's great, you just need to, it's plaster, it's an old property. So as opposed to, replastering the property, I said, let's do 1/4 inch sheetrock. We're throwing sheetrock on, plaster it, we're gonna get the fire inspector back out, right? So, I also have had, because I like you to hear the good and bad of it, I have had tenants call me about plumbing issues. I've had one tenant get bed bugs, and I had to, get Terminex out there for that. When I took over the property, I had a tenant in the first floor with a child under 6, and she was under the impression that the place was de-leaded from the previous owner. Told her that. That unit I knew wasn't de-leaded, so I put her up in a hotel, got it de-leaded, so she can move her kid back in. So all that stuff is important, right? So just be mindful if you're thinking about stepping into that space. It's not all about the income, just the income you can kind of generate, right? So, so we spoke about that. Right. So my purpose here is I want to kind of create some generational wealth, right? I didn't step into wealth. My father and mother, love them to death, but I'll probably, well, not so much anymore, but I'll probably take on bills if anything would ever happen, right? And not a lot of wealth, right? So I said I kind of wanted to be the change, right? To kind of create that generational wealth. So if you're sitting here, actually, I did leave out as well. I'm also actively working with Mia Soltis, right? I was in agreement to purchase to build an investment property through Airbnb in Dominican Republic. So we flew down there and we signed some contracts and things like that. At that point, we decided to pull out of that deal. So you will notice that things are different in different countries, right? So if I'll just point out a couple of things, one thing that stood out to me in this particular deal is here in this state, escrow deposits, deposits go into an escrow account. This particular builder wanted me to wire him the money into his own personal account. So that stood out as a red flag. Yeah. And then the other thing was, so that's the other thing is we were getting overseas financing, right? So here, obviously, if you can't get financed, your deposits are protected, right? But there, they want to keep 40% of your deposit, even if you couldn't get financed, right? So those kind of things stood out to me. And so there are some other options to kind of still make that come to life. So we're still working together with that, right? So if you're sitting here and you're thinking about how to pursue a multifamily because you just don't have the liquidity in the bank, or you don't want to clean out your liquid savings account, just know that there are other ways to do it, right? If you own a primary home, you can ask yourself, how are you making that equity work for you, right? So, like I said, I'm in the banking world too. I get a lot of my bigger clients They own these big homes with a lot of value because they purchased them a long time ago. And so the way they're expanding their portfolio is they're coming in to see me for a home equity. The bank is lending out 80% loan to value, and they're taking that equity to purchase other properties, right? So a lot of people have mentioned the ability to do that earlier. So that's what they're doing. So if you own a home and you're finding it tough to kind of save that money, just think about whether that can be an option for you or not. I want everyone to remember 5 key drivers of success, right? 5 key drivers. Like I said, I have a whole team, and so you're really going to get out of it what you put into it, right? So my 5 key drivers of success. 1, be resilient, right? Just because it's not happening right now doesn't mean it's not going to happen, right? Whether that be being a good realtor, being an investor, having multifamilies, whatever it is, just because it's not happening right now doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. Be disciplined, right? It's easy to let up on routines, especially when you're your own boss. Right, so we're independent contractor, your own boss, it's easy to let up on routines, right? So just be disciplined. Be collaborative, right? There are a ton of knowledgeable people in the industry, just like in this room today, right? So I was here all day taking notes, right? So be collaborative. The other thing is be open-minded. Don't close doors just because you're not familiar. Right, I like to always use the example. When joining ESB, Dick and Tom tried to educate me on the revenue share program, right? And all I wanted to do when I came in was sell houses, right? I said, I'm going to sell a lot of houses, right? And so I was very close-minded. I had given no thought about what my exit strategy was going to be. And so as I became more knowledgeable and became more open-minded, I started to think about like all the other streams of income that we have available to us, right? Last but not least, be agile, right? Everything in this world is changing so rapidly, right? So the strategies that we are using today are different than they were 20 years ago. And that's in every industry that we're in, right? So I took notes earlier. Someone said that closings were going to be all like digital, right? So, it's just wild, just the way things are happening now, right? So you got to be agile, right? Don't get stuck in the way. Be willing to change. I'll finish off by saying the unthinkable for me was thinking that I could be different than any other family member that is forced to live check to check, or being different than any other friend or family member that's forced to just rent their whole life instead of owning, right?